I am Leviathan. Welcome back to Leviathan, the epic of the Red Gaze. Let's see what's covered in this book. Last time we saw Virgilius, the Red Gaze, and his band of overfixers. They were preparing for their infiltration within the art gallery owned by the Ring, an artistically themed finger, one of the most powerful organised crime syndicates in the backstreets. Due to them, at least according to a video sent to Garnet, was running experiments that looked suspiciously like an early prototype of the identities mechanic of Limbus Company, which so far was only producing cracked mirror distortions. Garnet was strong along with Virgilius, despite the rookie fixer's doubts that, due to it being more personal for him, it might make him a liability. That, and he was suspecting that his friend Lapis is dead. While Denver, the light-haired fixer who was once as idealistic as him, but has since followed the money, due to simple survival, had a role involving a bag, or more specifically, what was in it. Yeah, it's hard to be idealistic in a place where social Darwinism is practically the state religion. Well, if the head is the state. Yeah. Most others either focus on surviving or become psychotic. Kali, the Red Mist, was a rare example of someone that maintained her idealism, not to mention her sanity. Most colour fixers, at least those that we know about so far, are either psychotic sadists or selfish holes. Anyway, the others had roles involving ridiculous outfits, while Virgilius knew that he was too conspicuous, even with the beyond terrible Superman-style disguise. So he went for the direct approach of showing one of the Ring thugs at the customer service desk his credentials, with Garnet following him. Not long after this, a Ring thug, who was smartly dressed in a white shirt and cream trousers and waistcoat, was escorting Virgilius and Garnet up to the third floor of the art gallery, telling them that their eyes may greatly fatigue upon arriving in that part of the gallery. While Garnet was sweating due to a mix of his most recent trauma and the current situation. Virgilius was looking down at the ground floor. Meanwhile, outside of the gallery, two workers were moving something via an anti-gravity-based means, possibly due to G-Corp gravity-manipulating spheres. Either that or some other technology that can achieve that effect. These workers turned out to be Rikoko and Nansio. They were carrying out their part of this operation. As they were walking in, Denver, that light-haired fixer, was in his disguise. Not as bad as Virgilius's, as he's not that conspicuous. He was picking up a map. And it turns out that this was happening before Virgilius and Garnet entered this gallery, as all the operatives were in the art gallery and that their tracking devices were online. At least according to the ponytailed female fixer, who was the handler in this. She confirmed this as she saw the dots on the map on the computer screen. The game's just begun. She told them to gird their loins and not to be an anxious little amateur out there, as she was smoking a death stick, or cigarettes, as they're more commonly known as. There are others in the control room that she was in. Either there are more fixers in Virgilius's employ, or they're working with Seven Association, or whichever association that his office is affiliated with on this one. Meanwhile, all of the field operatives were playing their parts. The ponytailed female fixer informed them that Virgilius and Garnet was now on the second floor, and the target was moving to point S-32, while Rococo was signing some documentation. Apparently, there was a delivery due that day from the MDM, which didn't appear to arouse suspicion with the light-haired and dark-skinned Ring Fug, although she did ask Rococo what happened to her predecessor. Apparently, it involved returning to the ocean before disappearing. Sounds like the merman distortion mentioned in Chapter 1 of the Distortion Detective. Nanseul was more concerned about the box that they were transporting shaking. Rococo told him to stop panicking as it's built to stay upright. As for their handler, that ponytailed female fixer, she reminded that tipping that box over would cost him 5 years of salary, so its contents are clearly quite expensive. At least enough for it to put whoever is careless enough to do so into debt. And although the one that they bought that from wasn't mentioned, it was clearly not from an official means, as she referred to the one they got it from as that shark that really shook them down. It was also, according to her, highway robbery. They're unlikely to be doing business with them again. This didn't make Nanseul any more relaxed, asking Rococo not to push it, much to Rococo's annoyance, as Nanseul didn't want to be blamed for that. Yes, if it's pushed too much and it topples over. As she was telling him to step aside already, someone bumped into her. It was Denver, who pretended not to notice her. She was resisting the urge to pommel him as he maintained his cover, looking at the artworks, and then to the left, as one of the docents who was giving a lecture on the artworks nearby. She spoke of how the general public as being bound to the conventional mindset of viewing things from just one perspective, while Master Jumsun was fond of ostranene, or defamiliarization. Well, at least according to the translation notes. Multilateral methods stemming from many viewpoints, where from there we can face the world in all its reality and provoke various interactions. Okay, was Master Jumsun's muse Iori the purple tear? As she thinks in much the same way? Anyway, this docent then spoke of the pieces in that section as partial successes to embody the ideals of the maestros. She then saw one of her colleagues with their eyes afflicted with something that made it glaze over and cry abnormally, who brushes it off as not being able to hold in her emotions. This results in the more normal-looking docent, well, normal by ring officer standards, to cut the lecture short, hinting at this being more than just emotional overload. This docent then went to a more quiet part of the art gallery to view a fractal-looking artwork. She had a necklace with peace in English on it. Then someone put their bag near her and sat on the other side of it. It was Denver, asking if the artwork was too touching to handle. He also advised caution, as the higher-ups wouldn't be too pleased with finding out the dealings that was going on between him and her. This unnaturally crying, white-irised docent. Yes, it would put him in trouble as well. And Virgilius might not be merciful. He decided to show her the goods in his bag, as her hands were feeling tremors. She was aware of this. It's why he's there for her. Now, this might hint at Denver making a little on the side with this ring docent, and it's something that he doesn't want either Virgilius or this docent's superiors to know about. And that's assuming it's purely about money. Well, regardless of the situation, this docent seems a little too happy for it to be purely strong emotions. She escorts Denver to what could be considered staff-only part of the art gallery. The thugs at the corridors guarding them pay no mind to this, as it's clear to them that he's with her, and it's likely that they're in on this. She and the ring thugs in a room to the side are looking at Denver, with the bag in the middle of the table. It's a tense atmosphere. So tense that you could fry it up and serve it as samgyeopsal smal. Yes, sorry if I butchered the pronunciation of what is grilled pork belly in Korean. He was listening to his handler during this, while Virgilius and Garnet were still on the second floor, according to her. As for Nanciol and Rococo, they were playing the part of couriers transporting moonlight stones. Ah yes, a product of M-Corp singularity that protects against psychological attacks. Yes, they're used in Liu Association uniforms. Yes, that's one of the more notable applications. She told them to stay sharp for now and to cut it off when the time's up. Well, yes. As for what he was transporting, it was top-of-the-line electronic products that have unclear purposes. Denver described it as a little nudge to give their future patron a good impression. The crying docent asked If she was allowed to look forward to this, she was moved. Denver asked if she remembered that they're just sampling the goods there, and not to get carried away. She was aware of this, but didn't want to keep the joy to themselves. It was clear that the ponytailed female fixer was overhearing what was going on, and she was concerned with how the conversation was going. This made Denver feel nervous as well, saying thanks, but he'd rather... And then the crying docent, upon seeing this, said one thing: that ecstasies were better when shared together. Yeah, I think we know what kind of alert Denver is in right now, and it's not red. Red isn't even close to describing the world of hurt that he's about to receive, and it might not be the conventional kind. Well, this appears to be part of the cover that they planned in advance, as the handler was overhearing the conversation between Denver and that ring docent. So we can safely rule out him selling some tech on the side for his own profit in a deal that the higher-ups in both his office and that front of the ring, let's just say they would most likely explode with anger if they found out. And we know what Virgilius can do. As for that crying docent, she reminds me of the dreaming current abnormality. The eyes have a similarity, as does the look as if she's drugged into happiness, although in this case the stimuli is the artworks that are in the art gallery. The ring only trusting what they see. It would appear that we'll need to wait until the next book, until Virgilius and Garnet get to the third floor. It would appear that 7 Association fixers need to have a flair for the theatric. As in, they need to have some acting skills for situations where combat isn't recommended. Well, they're certainly not Lear Association. They're a combat-orientated association. Subtlety is not their game. Anyway, back to the acting. Virgilius might not be able to get away with that, but the others can. Garnet isn't doing that because he's with Virgilius, and it would look suspicious, wouldn't it? Also in this are 2 singularities. The gravity stone of G-Core, located in section 7, and the Moonlight stones. Yes, the Moonlight stones that shield against psychological attacks, made by M-Core, located in section 13. Which would explain why it would cost Nanciul 5 years' pay if he were to... Well, if he was to push that container over, assuming that Moonlight stones are in there. And that's also... It's unknown what grade Nanciul is. Well, he's certainly not grade 9, as he's no rookie, and he hasn't suffered a severe demotion like another fixer has. Those of you who have played Library of Ruina will know what I mean. As for the others, with the handler, the other fixers, to be more precise. It's possible that Virgilius has other fixers under his employ, and that they were on request at the time Garnet joined them and started investigating the ring's operations. It's also possible that they're calling on Seven Association on this one, in exchange for a cut on what they find there. There's currently too little info to say which is the case. All that is certain is that Nanasiol and Rococo are delivering something. Possibly Moonlight Stones, possibly something different. In their cover as couriers. Virgilius and Garnet are being escorted to the Maestro of the Ring on the 3rd floor. Their female ponytailed handler is overhearing their conversations, and Denver really should have chosen his trousers wisely, because he's now in deep by one that looks like she's in an intermediate stage where she can, well, she'll either distort or manifest EGO, or Psychonant as it's otherwise known. Well, we already know that Virgilius will survive all this. It's just a matter of how. As for the others, I honestly can't say. We'll just have to wait until more is revealed. If this ring docent distorts, she wouldn't be one of the first of the fingers to have someone that did so. Until next time. Hail the rabbit!